Hello, this is the second homework assignment for NodeJS Masterclass. In this assignment, I'm going to show you how an API works for a pizza delivery company. I'm going to cover a basic scenario. I'm going to create a user, make an order, and pay for it. So first, I'm going to create a user. I'm using the users route and post method. First, I'm going to start the application. I can see that it's running, so I'm going to send my request. I send the 5 fields. All of them are required. That's first name, last name, email, password, and street address. And I can see that the API returned a success. Let's go to the files and see the file for the user. And here are all the informations I sent in. Now let's go back and let's log in. To log in, I need to use the tokens out and the post method. I'm going to send in the email and the password of the user that I just created. And I can see that the token is returned. I'm going to grab the ID of the token to use it for another round out. So now that I have the token, I can get the menu. I'm going to populate the token field in the headers and send the request to the menu route and get method. So now I get the list of all the pizzas, and each of them has an ID and some additional information like the name and the price, ingredients, etc. You can see another pizzas here. Alright, so now I can make an order. Let's go to the shopping cart route, and using the post method, I'm going to populate the payload. So I chose pizza with ID 3 and pizza with ID 2. I'm going to specify the amount of pizzas, and this is my payload. In the headers, I'm going to use the token that I just generated a minute ago. I'm going to copy the token and pass it in here. I can see that my order was created. Let's see that in the files. So here it is. Let's go back. And now let's purchase the order. Let's pay for it. So I'm going to grab the order ID. And I'm going to populate 2 headers in the request to the purchase route via post method. I also need the token as before. Let's send the request. I can see my payment was received. Great. So now I'm awaiting an email from MailGun. Is the email from MailGun? It's exactly what I ordered. So now the user can log out. To log out, I need to pass in the token ID to the tokens out via the delete method. I've been logged out. So let's see if I can still get the menu. My token is expired, so I cannot get the menu. It worked. Now let's take a look at the code. So I'm starting my application with index.js file. Let's take a look at now. So there is only one function in it. In the beginning, I'm printing the welcome message that you can see on the right. It says welcome to Crazy Pizza API, and there goes the drawing. Afterwards, I'm starting the server. You can see the log over here. The two servers are listening reports, and then the workers. And the workers are responsible for deleting the expired tokens. Now let's take a look at the server.js. In here I'm creating two servers using unified server function. So I'm creating the HTTP and HTTPS server both with the same function. And in here it will be responsible for passing the URI, for trimming the path, for getting out the query string object, for getting the method and the headers that the user sent in, and then creating the response with the data in it. And afterwards, I'm starting the servers, they start to listen, and I'm logging out the message onto the console. In the server, there's also the router array with all of my handlers. In the workers file, I'm creating the workers and first logging out the message that the workers are running. And then I'm going to delete the expired files, that says expired tokens. In that function, I'm logging out the message, and then I'm using the gather all function. I'm passing in the folder where the tokens are stored, the name of the field that I'm checking, and then the function that check is if the field is valid or not, if I should delete the token or not. So let's take a look at the gather all. And here I'm listing all of the files in the folder, and then I'm going to take a look at each file individually. I'm validating the data of that token. So with the validate data function, I'm taking a look if the file contains a value. It's called feed value. And then I'm going to extract the value of that. If there is not a value inside it, or if the value is not as I expect, then I'm going to delete that file. And that's it for the workers. So inside the helpers, I have many various functions that help me in different files. I got function called getMenu, which basically just reads a file when I have my drawing, and then I return that as a string. I have a function called hash that is used for hashing the password, and also many other functions for validating if the object is an array or a string or it's a valid email, etc. Now let's take a look at the data.js file. In here I got different functions for manipulating files that's used for different handlers like users and tokens and orders and shopping carts. So basically I have the create function, which creates a file of a given name in a given folder. Afterwards there's the read file. The read function just reads the file or returns an error. There's also the update function, which updates all the data inside the file. The delete is pretty straightforward. The list function lists all the files inside a given directory, and it pushes the names of the files into an array, and then this array is returned back. The last function, list containing, works the same. only there's an extra check if the name of the file contains a given string. So I was to list all the files that contains name of the user, then only those files will be in that array. Next to the configuration file so the configuration file has a lot of variables used across the different files in my project, in the handlers, mostly the handlers. So there is a variable for workers. It's the loop time, because the workers are evoked every 15 minutes. There's also the expiration time for the tokens and the tokens length. I also store the names of the folders, so I don't have to use string literals. Afterwards, I have some path to resources. That is basically just my menu that I store inside a JSON file. It looks like this. I also have path to my logo drawing, which is basically an ASCII, just a string. Afterwards, I have some consonants for business logic. For example, the marks order items amount. I also got a special array which contains messages that I send to the user back to the user that I use across different handlers. In the end, I have the environment. I got two ones, the staging and the production ones. I use the credential for Stripe and the MailGun. And I also have a special variable over here, which is test email. If the environment is testing, then I'm going to send all the receipts to myself instead of the users. At the bottom, you can see that I'm actually setting the environment to the staging by default, unless the user sets in the command line argument and wants to go to the production stage. Now I'm going to show you the purchase handler. This is the last one. I only have one method in here, post, but I have quite a lot of helper methods for me to help create a payload for the Stripe and the MailGun services. So the purchase route is used to pay for the order, that's existing order in the shopping cart, or to make an order and pay for it in one request. So first I'm verifying the token. Afterwards I'm checking if there's an order ID header set or if there's an order payload. So if there's none set, then I return an error to the user. Otherwise, I'm trying to get the order data. So if the order ID was set, I'm going to just get order from ID, a promise. Otherwise, I'm going to trying to get the order from the payload. So let's take a look at this first promise. So to get the order data, I'm going to create the order file name. I'm trying to read that file. If that exists, then I can return the order data that is cited. So that's the data from the user's shopping cart. If the user decided that they wanted to get to put the order data inside the payload, then I'm going to validate that array, just like in the shopping cart route, and I'm returning it if it's correct. So after that, when the promise is finished, then I can go on and proceed to process the order. And I'm going to need the email of the user and so all their data. So if the promise didn't return any error, I'm going to send a request to the Stripe API. And it's done in the process order function. So first I'm going to create an order payload and then the Stripe request. Before that I need to calculate the bill. So by calculating a bill I'm going to need the order, getting the menu, and then I'm going through all the pizzas in my order, and I'm calculating what is the price of each pizza and what is the total price. I'm also creating a description for it. So I return a variable that contains the charge, what is the total amount, and also the description. Then I can create the order payload. This is the payload that I'm going to send to Stripe. Then I'm going to create a Stripe request with that payload. You can see in here I'm creating the request details. And I'm sending in my secret key that I have in the configuration file. Then I'm going to pass in the details and my payload into the purchase function. So inside the purchase function, first logging out what I'm doing. And then I'm creating a request with all my order details. If the Stripe accepts, then I'm going to get 200 or 201, and I'm calling it back. Otherwise, I'm returning an error message. So if my Stripe payment is accepted, then I'm going to try to send an email via MailGun to the user. And this is done by this function send receipt. So inside first validating my data, so the two emails, and then the subject and the message of the email. And if I get all of the 4 fields, I'm going to create a payload. And also the request details, and I'm going to use the API key that I stored in my configuration file. After that, I'm creating a request that I'm sending to MailGun. If it's fails, then I'm going to call back with an error. If it succeeds, then I'm going to return a callback with false. And that's it for my purchase handler. Thank you.